Rubbertown is a 4,000-acre industrial corridor located along the Ohio River in Louisville, Kentucky, just west of downtown. It gained its namesake when commissioned to produce rubber for World War II, one that has stuck ever since. A layered history of oil refineries, chemical companies, and other high-impact uses has left the landscape and its once well-renowned identity fragmented. The perception of Rubbertown, regardless of its economic impact on the nation, is that it is unsightly and riddled with environmental concerns. Perception, however, can be misleading. Take rust, for example. Most people associate rust with disrepair or decay. However, a slight change in perspective can reveal rich colors, beautiful textures, and a harmonious balance between one sacrificial metal and another. The goals of this project are to reconnect the community with its roots and identity, regenerate landscapes that have been contaminated and left underutilized through bioremediation, as well as balance the needs of both residents and industries moving forward towards a more sustainable future. Rubbertown's 4,000 acres can be divided into three main districts: Parkway, Gateway, and Greenway. Rubbertown has seen incredible economic growth from some of the world's largest oil and chemical companies, many of which have found a home in the Parkway and Gateway districts. Neighboring communities to the south in the Greenway district form a much smaller yet just as important piece of the Rubbertown makeup. As you can see, vacant and underutilized land scatters across all three districts, creating opportunity for connection between industry and communities. This connection is created by an eco-industrial corridor that connects all three districts and serves as a catalyst for environmental and social change. The corridor will celebrate the unique differences between Parkway, Gateway, and Greenway, while unifying an overall identity that is one Rubbertown. Before Rubbertown was Rubbertown, tank farms populated the landscape. Refineries in Parkway provide opportunity for bioremediation pockets along Southwestern and Algonquin Parkway that resemble these tank farms. These pockets soften the landscape along Rubbertown Way while celebrating the humble yet gritty beginnings of this very corridor. As you continue through the corridor, the skyline shifts and the economic heart of Rubbertown emerges in the form of factory infrastructure. A beautified bike trail with opportunities for artistic screening enhances user experience both aesthetically and in regards to safety. This stretch of Rubbertown Way exemplifies the balance that can be achieved between the needs of community as well as those of industry. This stretch of the corridor will reconnect two residential communities within Greenway, as well as form stronger connections with neighboring communities and the rest of Rubbertown. A large plot of vacant land presents the potential for a nature preserve that will mitigate environmental concerns of the past and the future by serving as the lungs of Rubbertown. Trail users are encouraged to reconnect with nature and appreciate its power to heal injured soils. The site at 6100 Campground Road is a narrow, deep lot bordered by thick canopy on two sides with the potential for riverbank access. In total, the site is about 100 acres and belonged to a former chemical company that existed until the mid-80s. As you travel south down Campground Road, you find yourself driving through a tunnel of trees before opening up into the site. The front half is about 40 acres and serves as a wonderfully protected oasis from the industrial jungle around you. Rubbertown Way serves as a green gateway to the 6100 Nature Preserve. Here, visitors will encounter three different types of ongoing bioremediation efforts to gain a deeper understanding of its processes. This extension of the bike trail along Rubbertown Way will encourage the expansion of a trail network in the future. Phase 1 of this project introduces landforms to the site and primarily involves earthwork. 2 of the 3 bioremediation types or pockets will be implemented during Phase 1 in order to begin cleansing the soil as soon as possible. Botanical berms inspired by energy wavelengths gently sweep through the landscape and will consist mainly of grassland vegetation that can be gradually planted over the course of all design phases. Swales will be introduced in Part 2 of Phase 1, increasing the topographical change and overall rolling landscape of the preserve. Reclaimed concrete pieces from the factory footprint on site will be nestled in plantings throughout the swales. These plantings will be able to withstand drought or wet conditions, making this a very dynamic landscape. Phase 2 of the design includes the bike trail expansion. A winding concrete path crosses over swales and in between berms to provide a unique and personal experience with nature. As you continue along the path, you drift further and further from the main road, creating an oasis from an industrial jungle of Rubbertown. Minimal seating is allowed just off the path, not to impede the flow of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. The final phase of the project, as well as vegetation, are the bioremediation patches. The most intimate and manicured plantings of the site provide for close-up interaction with bioremediation. Not only do these plants adhere to the common perception of a beautifully manicured landscape, they are also secretly working hard to clean heavy metals and toxins that have been left behind in the soil. As the bike trail peels away from Campground Road, visitors pass through a landscape of patches and swales. The landscape looks intentional and groomed. Tall fescue in between pockets of planting encourage off-trail exploration. The landscape is open, airy, and exhibits clear elements of design such as repetition and order. The slightly elevated concrete boardwalk provides a smooth transition from the rest of the bike trail. A maximum height of 30 inches above grade allows for the absence of handrails and creates an unobstructed experience with nature that remains safe. Certain plant species are capable of remediating soil and freeing it of toxins such as heavy metals and metalloids. While visitors stroll through the preserve, plants are working hard to modify these toxins into compounds that they can safely transpire, reuse, or accumulate in the soil. As users continue along the path, they will find their surroundings gradually change. Topography, types of plantings, and even materiality naturally shift depending on where you find yourself on the site. Large pieces of irregular concrete repurposed from the site can be found nestled in between plantings. Not only does this provide context, but natural-looking art to the landscape. Also, the reuse of materials from the site is a reminder of the sustainable future ahead. Pieces of concrete can also be used to create notions to secondary pathways or stepping stones when swales are damp. Concrete is a repeated element on the site, creating a sense of cohesion. However, different treatments to the concrete provide subtle reminders that the user's environment is changing. When crossing over swales, concrete is used to create a boardwalk that is sturdy but has a natural feel of being elevated over water. Smooth, brushed concrete can be found along the majority of the pathway, in between pockets of bioremediation. The use of this simple concrete provides contrast between unique paving and plantings as the user continues through the site. The third type of concrete paving is a specialty paving created with repurposed aggregate and signifies a wilder nature as you pass between berms. Though the change in texture may be subtle, the visual difference in pavement provides just enough interest to complement the corresponding environment. Slightly more obvious than the change in pavement, but still gradual, is the relationship between plantings and landform. As users pass over a swale and meet a berm, they experience a more luscious landscape, one that is encouraged to run wild and natural, and only maintained at its edges. As you can see, the remediation that is occurring in this landscape parallels that of a landscape that may appear to be more intentional and manicured. Providing users with a wide array of landscape options to experience and digest will hopefully change the public's perception about landscapes that are in process. The intent of Rubbertown Way and the 6100 Nature Preserve is to strengthen connections, whether it be a safer bike trail that stitches together districts through a repurposed vacant land, or providing a space for communities to reconnect with nature and their neighborhood. It aims to regenerate landscapes and repurpose them with healthy ecosystems. But all in all, Rubbertown Way intends to find a healthy balance between industry and community, past and future, man and nature. Altogether, one Rubbertown.